and welcome to 6 ways to exceed your sales goals in life and in sales. And I want you to have a really phenomenal, just phenomenal 2017. So thanks for letting me be a part of kicking off 2017 for you. This broadcast is being recorded, so if you don't want your question shared, don't ask the question, I guess. It's being recorded so that I can share the archive with you within the next 24 to 48 hours, or for those of you that weren't able to attend. Now, those of you that have known me for a while know that I do nothing for free. I just don't. I'm in the sales business. It's how I feed my family. I sell media products every day. I sell all the ad space on Sales Training World. My wife's event is coming up in February, and right now we're just over the $200,000 mark in sales for that event sponsorships. And the CRM tool that I use is the Magazine Manager. And I love the tool. Most of my clients use the tool. Those in the newspaper business, also the Newspaper Manager is available to you. Why do I mention these fine folks? Andy and Christy and Mark and Susan and everybody, is because they are making this possible for you today. Magazine Manager is paying for all of you to attend. So I'd love for you to take a little time, evaluate that product. Thank you to the fine folks at Mirabel Technologies, Magazine Manager and Newspaper Manager, for making this webinar possible today. All right, friends, so those of you that don't know me, I think most of you do. My name is Ryan Dohrn, and I have had a wonderful opportunity to work for some of the best media companies in the country. I also do a lot of training that is not media related, and so I've had the great opportunity to work with a bunch of wonderful large companies as well. John Deere, Lockheed Martin, Boeing, the U.S. Army. So I do sales and marketing training specifically focused on media and also focused on manufacturing and digital. And so that's where I live most of the time. So some of you that are joining us today are joining us via Sales Training World. And then I've got the majority of you joining me through 360adsales.com, which is the media side of our business. People often ask, where does Brain Swell Media come from? And it comes from me being at a conference in Austin, Texas, working with a bunch of publishers, and as I spoke, I noticed it looked like their heads were about to explode. So because of that, I named my company Brain Swell Media, and I hope that the information we share today is going to help you take your sales life to places, okay, places that you never thought possible, and that would be my goal. So, all right, friends, so let's get rolling on this topic. The interesting thing to me to share with you today is, were you aware of this statistic on your screen? Were you aware of this? 76% of people, you and me, fail on our New Year's resolutions by January 28th. Within 28 days, we typically fail on our New Year's resolutions. So, why is that? What's the problem? Well, what the problem really is that we're missing out on some of the foundational and fundamental goal-setting techniques that I'm going to share with you today. Now, I want to admit something to you as a point of honesty. Am I a goal-setting master? I am not. I try to be. I work hard to be, but very often I fail as well. But I have plans in place, and I am now achieving more goals in my sales and personal life than ever before. And I've taken these techniques from some of the best in the business, interjected some of my own ideas, and I think you're going to find this to be very, very useful. Here is from me to you. I don't want you to be a statistic. I want you to beat the statistics. I want you to take the 6 pieces of advice I'm going to give you today. I want you to own them, and I want you to grow from these pieces of advice. All right, so let's talk through the first goal-setting idea first. Jot this down if you would. Goal-setting idea number 1. You need to set keystone habits first. You need to set keystone habits first. And it's very important for me to point that out to you, and the reason is because of what a keystone actually is. So let me show you an example. So what you see on your screen is an example of a keystone. So when masons, construction workers, architects, whatever, are building a stone arch, the arch would actually fall without the keystone in place. Do you notice it's right in the middle and it's kind of got a wedge to its shape? So what happens is that essentially is the last stone that's inserted in place to hold the entire arch in place. So without the keystone, the arch would fall, or at the very least, it would be less stable. So how does this apply to your sales life? There are fundamental or foundational goals or habits that you need to have in place if you're going to achieve the goals that you set for yourself. Now, some people might refer to these keystone goals as mini goals. We're going to talk about that in a second. But I'm talking more foundational than that. Let me give you an example. Were you aware that according to experts at the Mayo Clinic and also at the Centers for Disease Control, that sleep deprivation is one of the largest, most common problems, health problems with Americans today, people today? Sleep deprivation. Were you aware that you need 7 to 10 hours of sleep? Not all people, but most people, to be highly effective. Because we know that that's true and scientists have told us that, if you want to achieve goals at work and at life, one of your keystone habits might be getting to bed at night, getting plenty of sleep. Let me tell you why this is so important. It's important because it affects me personally, my life. So I've been married to the same woman for 21 years, 22 years, 21 years. Oh, I'm in trouble, aren't I, ladies? I should know that. 22 years. 22 years. And for 22 years, I snored really, really bad. I actually kept my wife awake. She threatened to kick me out of bed almost every night. I had a really bad habit of snoring. What I found out is that actually my airway was closing and I had massive sleep apnea. And so when I was able to get that sleep apnea corrected, I realized that inside of me was power that I never knew existed before. I was missing out on sleep. So I also altered my sleep schedule to make sure that I got at least 7 hours of sleep every night. And when I'm traveling on the road 15 to 20 days a month, sleep is one of the mission critical pieces of me being successful, as well as a little bit of whiskey now and again. Okay? Sleep deprivation was one of my problems. So when I corrected that as a keystone habit of mine, all of a sudden I realized, wow, I have the ability to achieve goals in a much more vibrant way because I fixed one of the most important foundational elements of my life, which was sleep. All right, how does this apply to sales? Let's just say that your goal is to increase your sales 25%. Okay, so I think that's a cool goal. You can declare that as a goal, but what are the keystone habits that have to be in place for you to achieve that goal? Maybe it is you need to be updating your CRM tool. Maybe that's one of your keystone habits. Maybe you need to improve your prospecting process. That might be one of your foundational keystone habits. Maybe you need to actually pick the phone up or get out and meet clients. That might be one of your keystone habits. Without these keystone habits in place, you can declare that you want to increase your sales 25%, but quite honestly, without these keystone habits in place, you probably won't be successful. And by January the 28th, like most Americans, you will have failed on your New Year's resolutions. Now, clearly, there's way more to setting great habits and achieving goals than this. Clearly, and we've got a lot more information to share. But what I realized is once I got my keystone habits in check, in place, all of a sudden, my bigger goals became a reality much more quickly and much faster. Now, as we go through these ideas, if you have questions, please chat them over to me. Love to answer your questions as we go through those. So some of these keystone habits are going to be personal. Some of these keystone habits are going to be professional. You need to identify what they are. Some of these keystone habits may be health related, and that's something that you may need to fix as well. Now, I'm not a doctor. I don't even play one on TV, but I would say that once I was able to get my health in check, and I don't have perfect health, I'll be honest with you. Once I was able to get my health in check, all of a sudden, the rest of my life began to fall in order as well. All right, so idea number 1, set those keystone habits first if you want to achieve the much bigger goals. All right, let's move on to idea number 2, and please feel free to ask your questions all throughout our webinar today. All right, number 2, write this down or download it. You need to identify the why in your goals. Idea number 2 for reaching your sales goals or your personal goals is you need to identify the why in your goal, the why in the goal that you're setting. So let me break this down for you in a little more intimate way. There are 3 phases or 3 steps to setting most goals. Okay, you've got the how, you've got the what, and most importantly, you have the why. The how, the what, and the why. Now, the reason the why is important is because I can declare any goal that I want. I'm going to climb the top of Mount Everest. Okay, that's the what. How am I going to do that? I guess I need to get in a lot better shape and I need to get some training. Okay, that would be maybe the how. But why? Why am I doing it? Why am I trying to climb this mountain? So again, I want you to write that down. There are 3 steps. What, how, and why. So if your what is I want to grow my sales 25%. That's the what, and you need to declare it. Like Tony Robbins would say from the stage, you need to declare your goals, call them out. You need to make them a reality. Okay, so there you go. It's my best Tony Robbins imitation for the day. So that's the what. The how. The how is all about the mini goals that you will state. And I'm going to talk about those mini goals in a second. But I believe most importantly, what nobody really talks about is why. Why have you set a 25% increase on your sales commissions, as an example? And for me, the why is the part that's inside of you. Why are you doing it? So why do you want to increase your commissions? Number 1, get your boss off your back. I don't know, maybe that's a why. Maybe you want to send your kid to private school. That's a good why. Maybe you want to drive a Mercedes-Benz. That's a good why. Maybe you want to make extra commission to donate to charity, to donate extra money to charity. That's an amazing why. Maybe you would like to take your wife or your family or your partner on an amazing summer vacation. That's a good why. What I notice a lot of people, and I coach 75 to 100 some odd salespeople a month on the phone, and one of the fundamental pieces I see a lot of you missing is the why when you set goals. You don't actually focus in on the why. And the why is what spiritually and emotionally drives you forward. That's why it's so important for you to identify the what, the how, but also the why. Why is it that you are doing this? Why is this a goal of mine? And when you identify the why, then you begin to get intimate with that goal. All right, look on your screen right now. Does anybody recognize this tombstone? Anybody recognize that? So you notice there's 2 pals that are buried here. On the left is Tom O'Fallard, and he died in 1880. And on the right is a guy that you might know. His name is William H. Bonney. You recognize him? Yeah, Billy the Kid. William H. Bonney, Billy the Kid. And this is a picture that I took at Fort Sumner, New Mexico, when I went on a bit of a trek that I'm going to tell you about here as it relates to goal setting. Earlier on in my career, I was in the TV business, and I participated in a television show called Ride Smart with Craig Cameron. And Craig Cameron is a world-renowned cowboy and a horse trainer. And what Craig said to me is, he said, Ryan, as a part of our show, our goal is we're going to ride the trail of Billy the Kid from Lincoln, New Mexico to Fort Sumner. Now, for those of you that don't know the tale of Billy the Kid, the tale goes something like this. Obviously, William H. Bonney, Billy the Kid, was an outlaw. Some don't consider him an outlaw, but anyway, he was kind of well known around the West, and he was hunted down by Sheriff Brady. Sheriff Brady was killed, and William H. Bonney, Billy the Kid, was taken to the jail in Lincoln, New Mexico. And my friend Craig and I went to that location in Lincoln. And then William H. Bonney, Billy the Kid, he escaped from the jail after killing a deputy, and he took off on horseback, and he actually made one heck of a trek. If you were to drive between Lincoln, New Mexico and Fort Sumner, that would actually take you 3 hours by car. It's 161 miles. So Craig's goal for me and for the film crew is he wanted to ride that trail between Lincoln, New Mexico, and where Billy the Kid, many say, met his maker, met his demise at Fort Sumner. And so Craig wanted to ride this. So I did a little Google map research before we decided to do this. It was going to take us basically 3 hours by car. And so I thought, well, horses go about the same speed as a bicycle, basically. So how long was it going to take us on horseback? And if we followed the road, it was going to take us about 11 hours. So remember, as it relates to our presentation today, okay, so the what was, we're going to ride horseback like good old-fashioned outlaw cowboys from Lincoln, New Mexico to Fort Sumner. Okay, that was the what. The how is what we were kind of figuring out now. How many horses would it take? Is this smart? If we did it by bike, it's going to take us 11 hours and 6 minutes, even if we take the back roads. And then I realized that if we went cross-country the way that Billy the Kid might have done it, it actually is going to take us about 45 hours, 40 to 45 hours. So we declared the what. We figured out kind of the how. What we were really missing on this is why. I mean, honestly, why do you want to do this? Why did we want to make this a goal and make this trek? Why? And it eluded us. Why are we doing this? I think we were doing it because we thought it would be cool, maybe make for some good TV, but we were crazy. And so the why, I think, for us was, wow, this would be really neat. What we recognized is that the why was a little bit off base. Now, did we make the trek? We did make the trek. We didn't cheat too much. Multiple horses, multiple horse trailers. But for us, the 3 steps, the one step that was missing is kind of why. Why were we doing this? Why? Why was this a goal of ours? So when you think about the why, I want you to think about that trek that I made with Billy, the Billy the Kid trek. Because for me, what we didn't do accurately was really identify why. Why is it that we're doing that? So as you set your goals for 2017, you need to declare the what, figure out the how, we're going to tell you that, but more importantly, why. Why are you setting this as a goal? Okay, idea number 3. Plan for the year, not for January. Okay, idea number 3, plan for the year, not for January. Now, this is so important in the sales business. Now, granted, a lot of you, especially those of you in the media side that are attending today, you're already probably selling into March, April, some of you even May, or you're selling events that are happening later on in the year. So one of the things that I do is I actually went, I think, to like Office Depot or whatever, and what I did is I actually bought a full year wall calendar. Now, I want you to understand, I am a tech guy. I love technology. I buy technology even sometimes before it's proven or tested. But what I do when I set my sales goals and my personal goals is I map them out on the wall. So I'm here in the studio now, but if you could see my regular office, I've got this type of calendar on the wall. I recently found one online, though, that was even better. And this is what it looked like. It really covered the entire wall. Now, what you'll notice here that I think is pretty darn neat is that you'll notice that every single month, so if you look at the month of September, you'll notice that there's all kinds of spots for projects and goals. Do you see all this below? So you've got all this area here to write all your various mini goals on the wall. And the reason that I believe this is important is because you actually need to map out your progress throughout the year. Now, granted, this is probably not going to fit in a lot of your cubicles at work, so maybe this isn't realistic. I just thought it was a neat example. This example here is one that's a little bit easier to control. But what I want you to understand is if you've got quarterly goals, monthly goals, issue goals, whatever the circumstance is, you want to map these out week by week. You know the old story or the old question, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time, okay? Everybody's heard that. The same thing with goals. So what I do is rather than just keep these on my computer, I actually map these out on the wall. Then what I do is I use color-coded pens to mark my achievements or to mark how close I am to reaching that goal. Now, one of the things that I also found is that when I use these wall-type maps, if you will, or calendars to map out my goal success, other people know what you're doing, or other people know what you're trying to do, and then they can help you. They can encourage you. And so for me, mapping this out, not planning for January, but planning for the whole year, allows me to look ahead. Because one of the things that a lot of people don't do very well is you don't give yourself enough time to set goals. Okay? So it doesn't give you enough time, all right, to set the goals. All right, a question came through from somebody and said, as relates to the last point in Billy the Kid, what track did you end up taking? We ended up taking the road. We rode the side of the road in the grass along the side of the road, and it took us a lot less time. It also was just a little bit more efficient. So efficiency in your goal setting as well. All right, so back to this point, mapping out your goals is important because it gives you a visual index to follow. 86% of you are visual learners. 86% of us are visual learners. So because of that, when you add this element to the goal setting mix, that's when you begin to see a lot more success. Is this old school? Yeah. I mean, I was born in 1972, so I'm not that old school, but I'm old school enough. I remember vinyl records. I remember 8 tracks. Okay? Is this an old school technique? It is, but it's visual. It's highly visual. All right, how about the sales managers on the call today, or on the webinar today? Sales managers, how can you use this? I would highly encourage you to do something like this for your team, maybe even for individuals on the team. I believe in the sales department, open transparency is critical. I want my salespeople to know where they are. I want the team to know where we are, and that's why I think this is great. Now, if you do have a wall in your office where you can lay out a calendar, something like this gentleman has, I think you can add projects to this, sales goals to this. You can do this at home or whatever the circumstance is. You want to plan for the year, not just for January, and use visuals as a part of the mix. I do this every day. It helps me with great success. I've done this in the past as I managed people to great, great success. So I want you to really, really consider that, and I think that it's very, very important. All right, a couple of thoughts here. Somebody said, my team and I are having a 2017 sales planning session next week to pre-sell for special projects. Any ideas that might help on that? Yeah, good question, and absolutely. One of the things that you want to do as you're pre-selling 2017 or special projects is offer unique incentives. Offer unique incentives to your advertisers to participate in an early way. That could be price reductions, it could be rate protection, it could be bonuses at the end of the year, it could be buy 3, get 1 free, it could be buy 4, get more. I really believe in incentives as opposed to discounting. So for me, I think that incentives, those type of things are things that you can do as you're talking about pre-selling your year. So good question. Also, map out those pre-sales on the wall as well. All right? All right, once again, thanks to the magazine manager as we get to point number 3 and the newspaper manager for making this possible today. We sure appreciate that very, very much. All right, number 4 is really at the meat of the matter, and is one of the most important things for me to share with you today. Idea number 4 is understanding how to set mini goals. Okay? Idea number 4, understanding how to set mini goals. And the reason mini goals are important is because without the steps, you will have a hard time reaching the top. You need to map out all the steps in between. Now, I know when I say mini goals, some of you, the first thing you think of is mini-me. Okay, mini-me, that's one of the funniest and my favorite characters from the Austin Power movie. But what I really mean as it relates to mini goals is that you really need to map out the steps all the way to the top. My wife and I had a wonderful opportunity, along with our 2 boys, to go to Belize last summer, and we had the opportunity to climb to the top of one of the Mayan ruin temples. Now, before anybody says, oh my gosh, I can't believe you're ruining a temple by climbing on it, there's a special way to climb the temple. But let me give you an example of what this really looks like. So what we did is, they didn't tell us this. We had a 2-hour bus ride to get to this temple. Then we had to hike a mile before we actually had to climb this 130-foot structure, my wife and 2 boys. There's approximately 120-some steps to the top. And so we had to kind of map out our plan. My oldest son was very gung-ho, Dylan, very gung-ho, 17 years old, plays football, really, just kind of an athlete. My son, Ethan, he's the smart one of the bunch. He said, yeah, that looks like a lot of steps. So what I've decided I'm going to do is I'm going to be the photographer. He said, I'm going to stay here at the bottom, and y'all climb to the top, and I'll be the photographer. Here's what we did as we set our mini goals. The first thing we said, our first goal is we're going to take our first photo right here at this first top of this first set of steps. Then our next goal is going to be here at this plateau where they did a bunch of sacrifices and things like that. Then our next goal was to reach this stage. Our next goal then was to get all the way to the top. And you can see there's actually a person at the top. There's no guardrails or anything like that at the top. You could jump off, I suppose, if you wanted to. And so what we did is we recognized that to climb 130 feet, and it is very slippery, very narrow, no guard or handrails, is we needed a plan. We needed to set some staging goals for photos and for everything else. Now, how does this apply to your sales life? It applies very, very specifically. And that is that when your goal is to reach, say, 20-some% increase in sales, you're going to have steps reaching to that. So let's talk about it. If your goal is to increase sales, what are the 3 things that you're going to have to do? I want you to write these things down. Number 1, you are going to need a perfect prospecting process. Number 1. So the first step on the ladder to get to your sales goal is you're going to need a perfect prospecting process. Now, if you don't know what that is, refer back to webinars and videos that we've done together, or go and sign up for that video series that I do called Mission Critical. I call it my Big 50 prospecting plan. So I've perfected prospecting. I use templates, I use email, and I use voicemail to get meetings with clients. So the first step is perfect prospecting. The second step is hosting really, really great sales meetings, or sales calls, to be more specific. And one of the things that I do when I'm hosting sales calls is I come prepared with ideas. Unlike so many other people in the sales business, I actually come prepared to sell something. Here's one of the ways that I differ from a lot of other trainers. First of all, I actually sell something. It makes me crazy to work for people and to listen to people, rather, that are trainers that haven't sold anything other than themselves in the last 20 years. It makes me crazy because they don't know what's happening out on the street. That's why I actively sell advertising, software, and media products. So when I'm hosting sales meetings, and because I know that I'm going to be selling to a lot of millennials, I come prepared. Remember something. Millennials are amazing salespeople. They really are. They're really, really great. They're like a Jack Russell with a sock. You know, once they sink their teeth into something, they're never going to let it go. One of the things that I often hear people say is, Ryan, I like to do discovery meetings, meaning that you go to a meeting to discover things about that client. You come back to the office to create a proposal. Then you chase the client down again to present your ideas. They have to go think about it. Then you have to chase them again. That's 3 chases. So you chase them to get a meeting. Okay, then you go to the meeting, and then you chase them again to present your proposal. And then you chase them again to get buy-in or to get a final decision. I don't do that anymore. Instead, my second step of reaching my goals is that I actually go to the meeting prepared with ideas, and this is how I do it. I do it based upon what their best competitor is doing in the market. So let's just say that I'm working with a jeweler, just as an example, and they're a new advertiser to me, just as an example. I'm going to come to them with 3 ideas that are as good or better than their nearest competitor is doing in the marketplace. Now, I might discover at that meeting that I'm wrong. I might discover at that meeting that they need more. But at the very least, I'm showing up prepared with a marketing plan that is as good or better than what their nearest competitor is doing, and then I grow it from there. So what I've done is I've eliminated a step in the sales process. I've eliminated a full and complete step. So remember, if you go without anything, that means you have to go back to the office to prepare the proposal, and then you have to chase them down again to present the proposal. I've eliminated that step. Instead, I show up and say something along these lines. I've come prepared with 3 ideas that are as good or better than what your nearest competitor is doing in the marketplace. Now, there are some of you on the webinar today that are in the advertising business. I totally get that. All this applies to you as well. If I was selling software, watermelons, washing machines, microphones, coffee, wouldn't necessarily matter. Instead, what I would do is I would say, I've come prepared with a couple ideas to show you how our software will give you a competitive advantage, or how this watermelon is going to make your dinner better, or how this coffee is going to enhance your life. What I don't want you to do anymore, because millennial buyers have no patience for this, is show up with an empty briefcase, show up with nothing. So that's my second step. So the first is perfect prospecting. My second step is hosting amazing sales calls and obviously presenting good proposals. My third step, though, towards achieving maximum sales success is having a perfect retention program. Perfect retention. Now, one of you asked in the chat box, okay, what's a good retention program? If you remember back 2 months ago, I did a webinar with Jack from Redex Research, and you can actually go to 360adsales.com, click on the webinars tab, and then you can actually watch that webinar called Stop Losing Customers. Okay, Stop Losing Customers. And so I don't want to get into the details today because a lot of you were at that webinar. So those are the 3 rungs of my ladder to exceed my sales goals. I've perfected the prospecting process. I host really, really amazing meetings, and then I am wickedly good, or at least I think I am, wickedly good at retaining clients. So those are the mini goals to the bigger goal. So let's start back at the beginning, okay? The beginning was you need to set Keystone habits in place. Great. I'm getting plenty of sleep. I've got a good computer. I've got the support of my family. I'm spell checking better than I ever have before, whatever it is. My Keystone habits are in place. The why. What's the why in the goal? The why in the goal is my why is I want my family to have as good or a better upbringing than I had when I was growing up. And I was very fortunate to have a great upbringing. So my why is always family related. And I want to be able to retire someday. I'd love to be able to not have to work, but just work if I wanted to. So that's my why. Then the mini goal part. These are the mini goals that I'm setting in place. So I know that I need perfect prospecting. I need to host amazing meetings. I need to come to those meetings prepared. And then the third piece is I need to retain those clients. Those are the 3 pieces, okay, if you will. The 3 pieces, if you will, of my mini goals to get there. All right? Okay, so let's answer some questions. All right? Can you give us a couple more examples of the things that you do in setting mini goals? Yeah, absolutely. So in addition to the mini goals that I explained to you, I also have, to reach my big goals, I have time management goals. So one of the best things that I can help you with is if you become a time management master, and I think we did a webinar on that. If you become a time management master, it means that you own your day and your day doesn't own you. When you become an email master, a master of your inbox, that means that you own your inbox and your inbox doesn't own you. So I've shared this with you guys before. I'll share it one more time. What I do is I prospect at 11 and 4 every day. That's my goal, 11 and 4 in my time zone. In my clients' time zones. Now, why do I do that? I prospect at 11 and 4 because most people don't book meetings at 11 and 4. They don't book meetings at 11 because they don't want to have their lunch interrupted. They don't book meetings at 4 because they don't want happy hour interrupted. So that's another example of mini goals. I have time management mini goals, and so what I do is I always prospect at 11 o'clock and 4 o'clock in my client's time zone, okay? In my client's time zone. So for me, that's very, very important. All right, so those are the mini goals, okay? Let's keep moving forward. Idea number 5 is understanding that you will need to plan to adjust your plan. Okay, idea number 5 for goal setting is you will need to understand that you need to plan to adjust your plan. So what do I mean by that? I think that it's unrealistic for anybody on this webinar today to think that they will never fail. I know that I fail. I fail frequently, but I try to fail forward to the best of my ability. Many times the reason you won't achieve your goal is because you come to a certain point in trying to reach that goal, and then you fail, and so you give up and you quit. And you need to plan to adjust your plan. Now, obviously you want to set rewards, and I think reward setting is really, really important. But for me, I want to plan to adjust my plan. So what does that mean? Let's talk about time management. If my goal is to block off time at 11 and 4 to do my prospecting, and let's just say, and somebody just asked this in the question box, what do you do if a client books a meeting at 11? Well, then I punt it, that task, I punt that and move it to 4. So I'm planning to adjust my plan. So I block out 2 times each day, 11 and 4, and that way if 11 gets messed up, then I can do that task or complete that task at 4. I'm planning to adjust my plan. If on the way to my goal, I'm at a meeting with an advertiser, and they blow up the meeting, I mean, the meeting just goes sideways, and we never get to what I wanted to talk about, then I have a plan to adjust my plan. And that plan is I either set a follow-up, I record a video for them, or whatever the circumstance is, I plan to adjust my plan. When I'm at a sales call and I start getting peppered with all kinds of objections, I'm moving all my advertising dollars to Facebook, or I've decided to choose a different competitor because of price, I have a plan to adjust my plan. The first thing is I never get in the gutter talking negatively about my competitors. Clients want to pull us into that gutter. How do you compare to your nearest competitor? And I have a plan to address that. My plan is very simple. I'm very honest. I don't like to talk about my competition because I feel that it's unprofessional. So what I prefer to focus on is why I think that we are a better choice for you. Most people respond favorably to that. If I'm selling my media products and somebody says to me, I'm moving all my dollars to Facebook, I say, well, tell me why. Tell me more about that. And then I explain to them that most people that are successful on Facebook spend 15 to 30 hours per week marketing their products on Facebook. Do you have that kind of time? Are you aware that Facebook is now on its 5th consecutive year of negative active user growth? It's not getting better. It's getting worse for Facebook. I just plan to adjust my plan. And those in life that are very successful, they plan to adjust their plan. So when you're trying to reach your sales goal and things, doesn't happen, okay, things don't happen correctly, if you plan to adjust your plan, then and only then do you find some really great success. All right, so a couple of questions. Somebody asked, what do you mean when you say record a video for them? Let's say that I planned a meeting with a client, and 5 minutes before the meeting, they cancel the meeting. Okay, does that happen to anybody? Okay. So for me, what I do then is I use on my Mac, I use QuickTime, or on your PC, you can use Snagit or Camtasia. And what I do is I record a little video of my screen, not me. So the way you're seeing me now, not that. I record just a video on my screen. And then I send them that video. This is what I wanted to talk with you about. I record a little video on my computer. If you're interested in learning more about that, you can go to YouTube and search videos on videos, and you probably will find it, or reach out to me and I'll send that to you as well. Okay? A question. What would you say your biggest mistakes have been, and really what have you learned from them? We'll keep it to sales. Too many mistakes in life, the webinar will be over. As it relates to sales, the one thing that I found is that as soon as I realized that I needed to ask better questions than I was asking, that was a huge mistake. I was asking the wrong questions. I was asking questions like, tell me more about your business. I was asking questions like, tell me about your 2017 marketing plans. When I realized that I needed to ask more specific questions than open-ended questions, I started getting a lot better answers and having a lot better conversations. My next biggest mistake was I'm always in sales mode, and most people don't like to be sold. So because of that, I identified that when I don't sell, I typically sell more. When I just have conversations with people, I tend to get a better response from them. And so I was always in sales mode, and so I've taken myself kind of out of sales mode, if you will, and just try to have a lot better conversations, with people. So I think that's, pretty important. So I'd say those are probably two of my biggest mistakes. And the other thing is probably a lack of humility. That has been a big mistake and a problem of mine for years. Always have been a very arrogant person. And when I realized that I needed to humble myself, that's when I began to learn a lot more. I always thought that I was charismatic. I didn't realize that I was arrogant. And there's a difference between charisma and arrogance. And hopefully, those of you that have known me for a while, maybe you've seen that change over the course of time. Another question, do you use a standard email script, or are emails very custom? I use templates all day long. So I have sales templates that I actually put in my signature file in my email. So all I have to do is click and they insert themselves. I use scripts, all the time. And another question, how do you bring value through emails versus in cold calls? For me, I use voicemail as a way to show my charisma. Emails, for me, I don't focus on value of the product. Instead, I focus on valuing their time. So in all of my email templates, and one of the things I teach if I come to your office live or through my video series that's at 360adsales.com, is I want to let them know that I value their time. And when I value their time, then and only then do I have a chance to gain their respect by proving that I value their time. So for me, the value is not in the product. The value is in the time that they're going to give me for a new idea. Now, I don't know if this picture here is meaningful to any of you, but as it relates to planning to adjust your plan, this is an overview of a football play called a triple option offense. And this is basically one of the best examples I can give you of planning to adjust your plan. There's a college coach, his name is Paul Johnson, and he really is famous for, if not the inventor of, the triple option offense. And what that means, what the triple option offense actually means, is that in this example on your screen right now, they are planning to adjust their plan. So here is the quarterback. So in a football game, you've got offense, those are the people with the ball, and the defense, those that are defending that goal. The quarterback that's right here in the middle, he actually has 3 different options to plan to adjust his plan. He could take this ball and he could run the ball. He could take this ball and he could give it to this guy. He could take the ball and he could give it to this guy, or a couple other combinations in between. What they've done is they've set this up, this offense, they've set it up knowing that they will need to plan to adjust their plan. And the reason that that's so important is because when you don't plan for failure, okay, when you live pie in the sky, if you will, then you set yourself up for very rapid declines of success. I plan to adjust my plan as it relates to raising my kids, as it relates to relationships with my wife, as it relates to my clients. I always plan to adjust my plan. And the reason that this triple option offense has been so successful for Paul and other teams in college football is because you never know what to expect from the defense. So you're always planning to adjust your plan. And that's so unbelievably important. So unbelievably important. All right, so I've got another question that's popped up here. Let's see. Can you give us an example of what you say to convey value of their time? Yeah, absolutely. Value of somebody's time is me saying things like, most salespeople are a waste of time. I'm not one of those people. So 20 minutes is all that I need. I plan to respect your time, or I will always respect your time. I like to identify that most salespeople are actually a waste of time, and that's not me. I respect your time, and I also want to come to them with a competitive advantage. And so what I mean by the competitive advantage piece is that, let's just say, for an example, I'm looking at a competitor's magazine, and I see that the Acme company is running in that competitor. Rather than calling on Acme, because they've already been asked to the prom and said yes, I identify 3 of Acme's competitors. And then I will call on them in an effort to not waste their time. I'll say, hey, Bob, I know you probably noticed that Acme is marketing very aggressively. I've got an idea to give them a run for their money. I know a lot of salespeople are a waste of time. I don't want to waste your time. I've got a good idea for you. Could we get on the phone for 20 minutes? Or could I stop by for 20 minutes? So using that competitive chaos, to me, just really proves that I'm not wasting their time. All right, idea number 6 on the goal setting, and then some of you are asking some really great questions, so we'll get to those questions in just a second. Let's finish up on the idea of goal setting, and then we'll get to those. Great questions, by the way. Number 6, if you're going to exceed your goals in 2017, you need to find an accountability buddy. You need to find an accountability buddy. Now, I know some of you that are on this webinar today, you work remotely, so having an accountability buddy is almost impossible. Well, it's really not. The reason that a lot of people like to have a sales coach is that I hold people accountable for the things that we talked about. I will ask you, so how's your prospecting going? It's one of the reasons that coaching works very, very well. Finding an accountability buddy is mission critical. When do you lose the most amount of weight? Is it when you do it on your own or when you follow a program? Almost always when you follow a program. When do you gain the most muscle mass? Is it when you lift weights on your own or with a trainer? Almost always with a trainer. I can tell you personally that there's been a couple times in my life where I've worked with a trainer. I've always done better because they hold you accountable. Now, a lot of you don't like to be held accountable. You think of it as micromanagement. It's not what it is. Great accountability is comforting. When I know that someone is going to follow up behind me, I typically do things better. If I know my boss, my supervisor or whatever, is going to be looking inside of Magazine Manager to see that I'm adding notes to client files, I tend to do it. Without accountability, people tend to wander. So those of you that are salespeople on the call, don't be upset by accountability. Instead, you want to wrap your arms around it. Accountability helps you get things done on days when you don't want to do them because you know your boss is looking. In our living room, here at our home, we have a Nest camera. Are you familiar with that? So Nest makes those thermostats, but they also make Nest cams, and they're wireless, and we have one sitting on a shelf in our living room. It's there for 2 reasons. Number 1, should a burglar or something enter our home, we will get a very good picture of that person. The second reason is because I have 2 boys, 14 and 17. I'm gone a lot, so is my wife. And the rule is, if that camera ever shuts off, your grandmother will come and be your babysitter. That camera always has to be on because I want to see what's going on in my house. Oh, isn't that an invasion of their privacy? Okay. Well, that's a different subject for a different day. Too bad, boys. I pay the rent. Accountability. It's about putting accountability structures in place. Now, your boss isn't necessarily your best accountability buddy, right? So you may need another colleague. You might need to hire a sales coach, whether it's me or whoever it is. But accountability helps you get things done. Accountability can be comforting. You just need to change your mindset as it relates to accountability. Now, let's just say that you don't have a partner. You don't have an accountability buddy. What should you do? In my opinion, use your calendar. Use your calendar. So you can always hire a sales coach or just a regular coach if you wanted, a business coach. But I love my calendar. So let me give you a few thoughts. What I do is on my iPhone, there's a standard reminders app. And let me look at it so I can tell you what it exactly looks like. So it's a white icon with an orange, blue, green, and purple. Looks like a little piece of notebook paper. And what I do is I go in there and I set things to do. And then I set dates on those, and I say, remind me on this day, and remind me every week. And so I use technology as my accountability buddy, okay? So for me, because I'm not working actively, like in my office with other salespeople, my only accountability buddy would be my wife. And that's, hey, I mean, shoot, she's the boss. I know she's the boss, and I'm fine with that. But for me, that's not the best accountability buddy. So I use my calendar. But I am a sales coach, but I have a business coach and a personal coach. His name is Jonathan Wright. He works for a company called CoachNet RPI Systems, and Jonathan is my coach. And Jonathan helps hold me accountable for things. So finding an accountability buddy, quite honestly, that's mission critical to your success as you walk through the goal-setting piece. All right, so because we know that 76% of people are going to fail on their January 1 resolutions by the 28th, the effort that you're going to put forward to not be a statistic follows this path. Number one, you're going to set your keystone habits first because those keystone habits are fundamental to your success. Number two, you're going to identify the why in the goals that you're setting. Why are you doing that? Not just what, not how. Why are you setting these goals? And that's so important. Number three, you're going to plan for the year. Don't just plan for 30 days ahead. So get yourself a wall calendar and get yourself planning on that because it's so unbelievably important. Number four, you want to set mini goals. Those mini goals are the steps, okay, all the way to the top. Without those mini goals, you reaching the top tends to be very, very exhausting, or without the mini goals, you tend not to reach the top. Number five, you are going to fail. You just will. It's unrealistic to think that you won't. So you need to plan to adjust your plan. And when you do that, you'll always find better success. And then last but not least, you need to find an accountability buddy. Somebody that's going to hold you accountable for the things that you do or the things that you don't do. All right, so let's wrap up and then we'll get to some of your questions. What will you do to exceed your goals? Number one, you're going to need to do something different. If you've failed at your goals in the past, you've got to arrange them differently, and maybe you can follow some of the thoughts that I've given you today. Number two, you need to ask for help, and you need to offer help. There are other people on your team that need help, and maybe they're not going to ask. So you need to ask, and you need to offer help. And then number three is something I heard a long time ago from a fellow publisher or a former publisher, a smart guy named Steve Cherm. And Steve said, Ryan, you need to fail often, and you need to fail forward. So that means always have forward momentum as you're setting your goals throughout your entire year and your entire life. All right, so I hope that you find that helpful. My goal is that you would be able to use this information to take your sales life to places that you really never thought possible. All right, let's take this last 10 minutes. Let's do a free form answering your questions here. And I'm not going to call you out by name if you've got questions. For those of you that need to run, I understand. Thanks for joining us. Thanks to the magazine manager and the newspaper manager for bringing this to light for you and paying for this. They're paying for you to be here today. So let's answer your questions. This question coming in, what do you say when a client says they've gotten no results from advertising with us? For me, that's a question that I have to address well in advance of that question ever coming up. So let me back up for a second. On the sales call, I will say something like this. If we run the perfect ad for you, what do you want to have happen from that ad? And the reason I ask that in advance is because if I don't, then in the end, they're probably going to say they didn't get any results. So I like to ask them and manage their expectations from the get-go. All right, so let's just say that I did that, okay? On the sales call, though, prior to the call actually happening, I'm then going to say, what are you going to do to measure the results of this campaign? Are you going to use a tracking number on the phone? Are you going to have the phone number ring through to a cell phone? Are you going to print out your website traffic before and after the campaign is done? Are you going to put up a lead gen form on your website? Are you going to promote a specific product? Or are you going to be generic? Would you let me see your ad in advance? So I try to do so many things in advance that I don't hear that very often. Now, if there's no results, it could be bad creative, or it could potentially be bad expectations, but I try to do things well in advance of that coming up. So I don't have that happen a lot, but I do have that happen. Now, if someone only runs one ad, which I don't accept, by the way, very rarely, unless it's an event, I don't ever accept one ad because I know they're not going to get the results they need. So I'd ask them to at least wait till the end of the campaign. If they got no results at the end of the campaign, then the creative was good and the offer was good, then obviously there's a misalignment in your audience. I mean, obviously there's some type of misalignment. What is an example of a better question to ask? Sure. So how does social media play a role in your advertising? What would the perfect result be if we ran the perfect ad for you? How many times do you believe a new customer of yours needs to see your advertising message before they make a decision to do business with you? Who is your perfect customer? If anybody could come through the door today, who would you want to come through that door? Do you want your phone to ring? Because you're probably unrealistic. What are you doing to track advertising if we run a campaign for you? Those are all examples of what I refer to as my 10 critical sales questions. And that's something that I cover in my videos, as well as something I'd cover if I was in your office in person or coaching you on the phone. All right, next question. Is there a shortcut? Is there a shortcut to cleaning up your CRM database, especially as it relates to emails? Starting over. Starting over. For me, what I do is I dedicate about an hour each Friday. So today Friday? Yeah, today's Friday. Oh, is today Friday the 13th? My gosh, it is Friday the 13th, everybody. I dedicate time every Friday to research and development. So at 3 o'clock today, I have an hour blocked out for research and development. And what I do is try to clean up 10 accounts every Friday. So I go into the magazine manager, and I will go through and look at 10 accounts. I try to clean up 10 at a time, 10 or 20. And so I do that on a very, very regular basis. So I wish I could say there was a shortcut, but a lot of times you're deleting a lot of information that you really don't want to get deleted. What are the incentives you offer again instead of doing a price reduction? Oh, good question. Buy 3, get 1 free. So I do a lot of, and I'll charge full price for the 3 ads. So if you buy 3 ads from me, I will give you 1 ad for free. What I do in the background, though, is I charge pretty much full price for the 3. So I might charge the 1-time rate or the 3-time rate for the 3, which basically covers me on the 4th one. I have a client that does buy 4, get more. So when you buy 4 ads, we will actually take that 4th ad and we will double the size of it. So if you buy 3 half pages from me, that 4th ad that you're going to pay for is going to go from a half to a full. So buy 4, get more. Rate protection, price protection. I don't ever give away digital for free, ever, 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 ever. I don't ever say if you buy an ad from me, I'm going to put you on the website for free. Now, I will add them to our directory for free. I may actually do an email blast for them as a part of the total buy at a reduced rate, but very rarely do I offer things for free. Somebody asked, what do you mean by fail often and fail forward? Failing often means that you've got forward momentum. Okay, so forward momentum to me is that you are moving forward at a certain pace, so that when you fail, you are actually failing forward. You keep going. You learn from that failure. And so when I like to fail, I learn a lot from failure. I learn more from failure than I do from wins. So in order to fail often, you have to get momentum going, and then when you fail, you just keep right on going. And that's the whole idea, really, behind it. Somebody asked, what do you think is my best close? You're probably gonna think this is crazy, but this is one of the things that I say often. You ready for it? So what do you think? That's very often. So what do you think? Oh, well, I've got to think about it. And okay, no, not a problem. What about next Thursday? And I get my phone out. I say, what about next Thursday if I followed up with you, say at 2 o'clock? Would that be okay? Oh, no, I'll call you. And I say, no, it's not a problem. And I'll say exactly this. You know how most salespeople, after you meet with them, they start kind of harassing you, calling you and emailing all the time. You shake your head, yeah. And I don't want to do that. I don't want to be that person. So if we could just set a follow-up meeting right now, I won't be that salesperson to call you repeatedly and email you and stalk you. We'll meet. And if you decide you want to do it, rock and roll. If you decide you don't want to do it, I'll respect your answer. It's no problem. And so for me, that's my best close. What do you think? Well, I need to think about it. Okay. And then I just immediately take them to my phone, to my calendar, and get a meeting on the calendar to the best of my ability. Somebody asked, why no digital for free? Woo-hoo-hoo. Why no digital for free? I give nothing away for free. Digital is my future. I do think we're seeing a resurgence in print. I never, ever, ever give away digital for free because then I will never be able to charge for it in the future. Instead, I bundle it in as a part of the package. So for me, I don't offer it. And added value is junk to me. Added value means you want me to give you something for free. Here's how I work. The more you do with me, the more I can help you on the price of other things. So I might discount that banner ad. I might discount that e-newsletter for you. but we have spent millions of dollars creating an audience for you, Mr. Advertiser, to attach yourselves to. Okay, I use it all the time. I have spent, for Sales Training World, okay, so I was talking to Salesforce and Cisco the other day. I have literally spent over $100,000 creating a venue so that you can connect with salespeople. Certainly you understand that that comes at some type of price. So added value, when someone says, hey, I want some added value, what I'll do is I'll give them a discount on pricing, or if I'm going to give it to them for free, then I'm going to raise the price on something else. But I typically give discounts, and I really never give added value. Now, how about if you're dealing with an agency? You know, if you're dealing with an agency, it's going to happen. You're going to need to price it as added value, and they're probably not going to pay for it, in the future anyway. So, that kind of is what it is. All right. How do you feel? Let's see. How do you nicely explain that their ad may be the issue for not receiving return on investment? It's hard for me. I'll be honest with you. It's hard. So what I'll do is, if an ad arrives in that I know is not going to meet their expectations, I will call or email them and say, do you remember on the sales call in our meeting when I asked you, what do you expect from this ad? And you said, blah, blah, blah. The ad that you just gave me is not going to do that for you. I promise it won't. Can we redesign it for you? Could you redesign it? Are you okay running it with that understanding? A lot of times ads are the problem. Advertisers love to cram 50 pounds of 50 pounds of stuff in a 5-pound bag. And it frustrates the tar out of me as a salesperson. So, sorry about that. I just get really passionate as it relates to how many people want to just punch an advertiser right in the nose today? Who's with me? So, for me, it's hard to, explain it, but it's very important for you to understand that once you have that expectations conversation in the sales meeting with them, then what you really have to do is very vividly be able to say your ad does not, match that expectation. So, all right, next question. How do you address people who are used to advertising industry price fluff and insist on paying lower discounting from your rate card? Good question. Again, how do you address people who are used to advertising based upon price fluff and insist on paying lower or discounting from your rate card? For me, I like that conversation of, we have spent literally millions of dollars on this and building an audience that you can attach yourself to. So that's where we arrive, at the price. Across the board, here's what we can do for you. If that really doesn't make sense to you, I understand, but it is what it is, and we value our audience, and this is what we feel the audience is worth. I sometimes will say, they'll say to me, well, Ryan, I can get blah, blah, blah to do it for half price. I'll say, I just don't feel, we don't feel as a company that that is going to be a long-term path for success for them. And so because of that, it could backfire down the road. Here's another one for you, Brian, that I think will be very helpful. I find it interesting that they can discount their price that much. If I asked you to discount your product 50%, wouldn't you think that to be a little peculiar? And a lot of times I'll just have a conversation, from them. Question as it relates to, more pure digital magazines. For me, if you're only a digital magazine or if you're only a website, which some of you are, the package is the secret, the promotional package. That's why if you're in the digital-only space, sponsored content is all the rage. And so what I do, because I know social media is moderately cheap for me as it relates to promotion of my own products, if I'm only selling digital, sometimes I'll wrap into the package those type of options that will help give me great return on investment for that client, but aren't necessarily going to cost me, a ton of money. Okay. All right. How do you track your digital? Do you use Bitly? Good question. For me, the tracking of mine is going to run through, not necessarily through Bitly. What I do is I use DoubleClick for publishers, DFP, and what I do is I build text ads in DFP. And then I include those text ads, that text, in all of my offers. So that's how I track if someone clicked on it and if it was delivered. You said not to talk negative about your competitors, but what do you do when they're talking negative about you? I prepare a comp sheet, a comparison sheet. If I know that I've got a bunch of unethical people in the marketplace, I prepare a comp sheet, which puts my strengths and their strengths on one sheet with green and red check marks, or green check marks and red X's. And a comparison sheet is really important. So I'm not opposed to fighting fire with fire if I know somebody is out there slinging mud. My first step would be, though, having the publisher call the other publisher and saying, hey, there's plenty of room for the two of us to play out here. Why are we operating this way? Or why are your people operating this way? But then I would put together a comp sheet with facts, okay, with facts. And so for me, that's, I think that's, very, 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 very important. All right, somebody asked, Keystone habits, besides eat, sleep, breathe, and believe, what would be a good second? Fundamentally in sales, you have to have a perfect prospecting process. That is a keystone habit. If you don't have that, you're really, really missing out. Perfect prospecting, or as I call it, my Big 50 plan, I mean, it's really critical to my success. All right, a couple more, then we're going to wrap up because we're past our time, and I want to be respectful of your time. What's the reason that you gave for Facebook is getting worth? You said something about time. So over the course of the last 5 years, Facebook is seeing a year-to-year decline of 5% of active users. The reason is because of other technologies and because they're so freaking expensive to advertise. Facebook advertising has actually grown over the last 3 years. The cost has grown 400%. So they're one of the only companies in America that claims that they are the #1 advertising choice, yet their rates have actually gone through the roof, and the click-through rates have been cut by half. So Facebook for me is actually great for retention. It's not good for acquisition. Okay, so I think that that's kind of important. I didn't understand the purpose of using a video to set up a meeting. Oh, okay, good question. So send me an email, Cynthia, and I will send you a video on videos. Okay, for me, the video piece, when someone won't return my phone call or won't return my email, what I do is I would create that little video on my computer as a way to get them excited about what it is that I'm talking about. So, Gordon, thanks for your comments, buddy. I sure appreciate you being here. And yes, Laura, the Q&A will be a part of the question. Those of you that asked about the Big 50 prospecting plan, go to 360adsales.com, click on Video Learning, and go look at my Mission Critical Video Series. And that has the Big 50 as a part of that. Peg, I know you asked a question about that. Drop me an email, and I can send it over that way. All right, 2 more questions. Can you give me some examples of perfect prospecting? Yeah, calling people at the exact perfect time, sending them emails with the very perfect subject lines, and we covered that last webinar, 2 webinars ago, 10 secrets of emails. So check out that webinar as well, Monica, and I think that you will have that as a good reference for you. All right, 2 more. At what point do you decide you need to move on from a client? I get it. For me, after I've prospected them aggressively for 30 days, I've gotten no response, I trade them with somebody else. I don't want all of my hard work, Caitlin, to go to waste, and so then I trade them. At the end of 30 days of active emails and voicemails and videos and things like that, I think that it's very, very important for me to trade them with somebody else, because sometimes a tone of voice is very, very helpful. Hey, Rizal, thanks so much for being here, and we appreciate that. And Brian, I've got to run, man. I'm sorry I don't have a chance to answer that last question. I'll record it here and try to send it over to you via email. All right, friends, thanks so much. Love to be your sales coach. Reach out to me, Ryan@brainswellmedia.com. And until then, I hope you guys have a great day. Remember, if ad sales was easy, everybody'd be doing it, and they're not. So that either means that we're crazy or we found an amazing career that will feed our families for a lifetime. If I missed your questions today, sorry. I got to run, and we'll see you at the next webinar. We'll announce that one here coming up in just a couple of days. Thanks again, Christy, Andy, Mark, Susan, everybody. Mark and the gang over at Mirabel Technologies, the magazine manager. Thanks you guys so much for supporting me and supporting all of these amazing salespeople that were here today. So thanks so much. And Ashley, Shauna, thanks so much for your questions. And Brian, I appreciate your question as well. Take care, everybody. Make it a great day. We'll see you out on the street.